module. Our next presenter is Mr. Anil Jauhri. He is a leading light in the regulatory field. He was with the Bureau of Indian Standards, BIS, the national standard body. He was associated with them for over 25 years, having key roles and positions in the organization. Mr. Jauhri has also worked as advisor in the Export Inspection Council, India's export regulator and certifying agency under the Department of Commerce. Mr. Jauhri has been CEO of the National Accreditation Board for Certification Bodies, NABCB, which is under the Quality Council of India. He has managed accreditation programs as per applicable international standards like QMS, EMS, OSAS, FSMS, ISMS certification bodies. ISO standards relevant. He has also dealt with ISO standards relevant to personal certification bodies, process certification bodies, and GHG validation and verification bodies. The list is indeed long. If you ask me, if I went on speaking for 5 minutes also, I don't think I'll be able to cover the expertise area of Mr. Jauhri. He one and only one of his current engagements, and this is a pride engagement that he does. He's a member of the accreditation committee ASI Bonn, Germany. I request Mr. Jauhri to present his module related to accreditation and sustainability. Although I have said accreditation and sustainability, may I mention, basically, he is going to cover benefits of accreditation. This is a very important module for laboratories and personnel associated with laboratories who are present today on this forum. Dr. Jauhri, sir, can you please go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Rana. Let me at the outset thank you for inviting me to your program. It's very commendable that you are conducting a program on Sunday, because most organizations would shy away from doing a program on Sunday. But it's very right that today is the World Accreditation Day and you are having a program today. I compliment you on that as well. So you had given me this topic of need and benefits of accreditation. So here I go. As Mr. Rana has already told all of you, I have a background in accreditation, but I was CEO of NABCB, not NABL. I was suited to the NABL, being chair of their appeals committee for about 5 years. I also operated BIS's lab recognition scheme at a time when NABL accreditation was not so popular, 1997 to 2000. And we conducted our own assessment. So it was mini accreditation that I was handling for about 2.5 years, way back. So based on my experience, I'll try to explain to you why accreditation is needed, is important, and how we can benefit from accreditation. As you know, there is internationally an increasing use of standards, whether it's for products. I mean, we started with product standards and ISI mark years ago, 70 years ago. But today it has spread all over. It's products, processes, services, systems, even personnel. There is something called personal certification. And globally, it was recognized that in certain areas, these standards should be enforced by law as mandatory. And these grounds have been enumerated in WTO Technical Barriers to Trade Agreement. There are 5 grounds I mentioned there: health, safety. Health, you know, drugs is health, food is health. Safety, like electrical appliances, LPG cylinders. Environment, you know, environmental regulations. National security, some of the telecom regulation is based on national security. Unfair trade practices, for example, gold jewelry or cement. When cement was brought under regulation way back in early 80s, it was because a lot of adulterated cement was sold in the country. These are called mandatory standards, was a term used before WTO came into being, but WTO has now defined this term as technical regulations. In WTO terminology, technical regulations means compulsory requirements. Standards means voluntary requirements per se. Now, once we have this, use of standards, whether voluntary or regulated, then the next step comes how to measure compliance to these standards, which is what we call conformity assessment, which is inspection, testing, certification. If it's a product, you can do testing. If it's a GMP, you may have to inspect. Organic, we all know organic certification is so popular. Even by law, regulatory requirement is organic certification. As this spread, the use of standards and the use of conformity assessment has spread, two issues arose word-wise. Number one, how can I have confidence that you have a lab which can test pesticide residue to PPB or PPT or whatever? So I need to have confidence in conformity assessment. How do I know that an inspection agency can inspect GMP in pharma or GMP in food? How do I know that a certification body which is certifying ISO 9000 can do it in construction as well as in food? So that was one issue that arose. Are these bodies competent? Second was because we were looking at globalization and we are looking for free trade. Can these results be accepted across borders? Can I accept a test report coming from India in US? Can I accept a inspection report of GMP coming from Africa in India? So there's a issue of international acceptance. Fortunately, both these issues are addressed by something called accreditation that we are celebrating today, the word accreditation. Just to tell you the importance of accreditation, it is referenced in actually Technical Barriers to Trade Agreement in Article 6, which says that you can have confidence in the continued reliability of conformity assessment results. Conformity assessment results means test reports, inspection reports, certifications. For instance, through accreditation. So accreditation finds a mention and then it says with relevant guides or recommendations issued by international standardizing bodies. So you can see while ISO is not mentioned here, there's a reference to international standardizing bodies, which means in our case ISO, and accreditation is referenced here. So that's the importance of accreditation. You already know some of these definitions. Conformity assessment out of ISO 17000, that specified requirements are fulfilled. Conformity assessment term has got broadened. Initially, we used to think testing, inspection, and certification. But now we have even PT provision as conformity assessment, RMP also, and something called validation and verification. This has become important, especially in these days when we are talking of GHG emissions, we are talking of climate change, we are talking of ESG compliance. Validation is verification is about claims. One crucial difference between testing, inspection, certification, and validation verification is that validation verification refers to claims. If there is a standard, you inspect against the standard, you certify against the standard. If somebody is making a claim, you validate that claim or you verify it. So we have these, today these activities are listed as conformity assessment. And there's another term which is important. What is object of conformity assessment? Is it a product? Is it a process? Is it a service? Is it a person? Is it a design? You are doing design verification. So that's also important. Accreditation, as you already know, is third-party attestation, which means independent, because first party is manufacturer or service provider, second party is the user, and third party is somebody who's not involved in that transaction. Related to a conformity assessment body, this is important because we hear of NABH accreditation, we hear of NAC accreditation. My computer is giving me some problems.
Yeah, apologies. We have started again. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, let me just move out of the other. Yeah. So I was telling you about accreditation, which is, so we have to be careful that healthcare accreditation and education accreditation are not the same as we talk about accreditation. In the ISO world, the accreditation is limited to conformity assessment bodies, which is inspection bodies, testing labs, calibration labs, medical labs, validation verification bodies, certification bodies of all kinds. Product, process, service, management systems, personnel, everything. And there's a whole series of standards. We are normally relying on ISO standards. Here is a listing of all those standards which are used in accreditation. ISO 17011 for the accreditation bodies themselves. IQAS will comply with 17011. We'll have to demonstrate compliance to that. Other accreditation bodies which are in India and globally, they have shown that compliance through peer evaluation. And for the conformity bodies, there are a number of standards. 17 is called ISO 17000 series made by CASCO, which is a committee in ISO. You people are dealing with testing and calibration labs, ISO 17025. 1720 is for inspection, 1721-1 for management system certification bodies, 1724 personal certification bodies, 1729 for validation and verification bodies, 17065 for product, process, and service. And there are some supporting standards, including ISO 15189, which is a separate standard for medical labs. There are a number of such standards. ISO 17021 itself has several parts. There is an international accreditation system in operation. You are partly aware of that. Okay, just a minute. There is something called IAF, International Accreditation Forum, which is an association of accreditation bodies which are into certification bodies and validation verification bodies. And there is International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation, ILAC, which is for accreditation bodies which are engaged in lab accreditation or in inspection accreditation. Incidentally, these two are merging, currently in the process of merging, and hopefully next year, that is 2025, they'll merge into a single organization. We also have regional bodies. We are part of Asia Pacific Accreditation Cooperation, which is incidentally a specialist body of APEC. APEC is Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, so it has a government recognition, you can say. Otherwise, APEC is also an association. Associations, as you know, are not governmental. They are, in a way, non-governmental bodies or private bodies. And there are similar bodies in other continents like Europe, like the two Americas, Inter-American Accreditation Cooperation, Africa. Incidentally, there is one about Arab countries. They have got together, both in Africa and Asia, to create ARAC. And there is something called SATCA, which is South African Development Community. And there are mutual recognition arrangements, both in IAF, it's called MLA. In ILAC, it's called MRA. Mutual recognition, MRA is easier to understand. This mutual recognition has a process through which you can get mutual recognition. Hopefully, IQAS shortly will go through that process and get mutual recognition. So this is the framework in accreditation. Accreditation bodies are peer evaluated. The equivalence comes through peer evaluation. I was myself a peer evaluator for APAC. I have been evaluator for IF as well. And so a team of peer evaluators from other accreditation bodies will be deputed, come to IQAS, evaluate IQAS against 17011. And if it clears that evaluation, it can become signatory. Accreditation bodies deal with conformity bodies. Conformity bodies deal with product to service providers. So accreditation bodies directly don't deal with industry. And below the product and service providers, which is manufacturers and service providers, you have on one hand government, sometimes it's regulator, sometimes it's in procurement, you have consumers, and you have purchasers of all kinds. All kinds of organizations can be, hospitals can be purchasers, any kind of organization can be a purchaser. And the common consumer, of course. So the idea is that we should have a single program. The goal is very noble, tested, inspected, or certified once and accepted everywhere. But it's not so easy. And I'll explain to you why it's not so easy. But this goal is very noble, and I believe that we should work for this goal. A pictorial framework here, which helps you explain the whole framework. IF, ILAC are at the top. I have shown 3 regional bodies on the second level. So IF, ILAC evaluate actually these bodies. As I said, I have been an IF evaluator. I've been involved in 2 regional evaluations as well. The regional bodies evaluate individual accreditation bodies, which is what IQAS will face an APAC evaluation based on ISO 17011, which applies to accreditation bodies. Accreditation bodies evaluate certification bodies, inspection bodies, and labs. The frequency can vary, but as per ISO 17011, once at least in 2 years, you have to be evaluated. So as a lab, you will face at least once in 2 years an evaluation, if not more. Below that are the organizations or the items under inspection, certification, testing. So for CBs and IBs and labs, there are a number of standards which I have already spoken about. The last is the base, that is the object of conformity assessment, which I spoke about earlier. Whether it's product, it's process, it's organization, it's person. And here is the crux which we should understand. Now, if this standard is international, for example, say ISO 9001, an organization has implemented ISO 9001, which is an international standard, globally a common standard. And then you are certified by a certification body, which is operating as per ISO 17021, which has been accredited by an accreditation body, which is operating as per ISO 17011, let's say NABCB in case of India, because there's only one. In this area, at least, there is only one, which has been evaluated by a regional body, in this case, Asia Pacific Accreditation Corporation, which has been evaluated by IAF ILAC. Then the whole chain has been evaluated. That's why we joke in our community that in God we trust, rest all have to show evidence. So none of us can claim any competence. I may be CEO of NABCB, may have done 20 years of work, but I get evaluated in this world, which is a very, very fair system. And this makes my 9001 certificate globally acceptable because the base standard is common, 9001. And the manner in which I have been certified is also internationally laid down in ISO 17021. And I have been evaluated, that has been evaluated. Now translate that into a product. If there's a, say, an electric iron, there is a global standard for safety of electrical appliances, which applies to electrical iron also. Now, if that iron is tested in a lab which is accredited to 1725 by an accreditation body which is part of this ILAC system, then you could accept this product anywhere in the world. No? That is how the products move freely among countries through free trade agreements. That is how products move freely in European Union. That is how products move freely in ASEAN bloc. This is how accreditation and this system of ILAC helps free trade movement. This is important to understand. Accreditation process, I guess there is a presentation which is going to follow, but it has normally 3 stages. First is document review, where your documented system will be assessed, that it addresses all the requirements of applicable standard. For example, in case of labs, ISO 17025. Second would be an office assessment, where your office, the assessment AB team will come to your office and assess whether your documented system is being implemented. It will verify evidence of implementation. And third stage is witness assessment, which means actually witnessing an audit. Now, in case of labs, this happens together. The office assessment and WA happens together because labs office and labs premises is the same where testing is taking place. But in case of inspection and certification and validation and verification, these are 2 different stages for the simple reason that while the office of certification body or inspection body may be at one place, the actual audit or inspection takes place somewhere else. So it is, so let's say 3 stages. In case of lab accreditation, the 2 stages of office assessment and witness assessment are single because you can go to the office of lab and you can also witness testing right there in the lab. Now, what is happening around the world in accreditation? Actually, the fact is accreditation is a growing business. And it is also reflected in the fact that for 25 years, we had only NABL. And now we have QAI, we have FDS, and now IQAS coming in. And there'll be more in future, I guess, in India. Most countries, especially developing countries, have had only a single national accreditation body, although not by law. Please remember this. If for 25 years we had only NABL, it was not by law. It was merely by demand. In many countries, there is a government endorsed accreditation body in Sri Lanka, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in Bhutan, in African countries. But I have not heard that there's a law which bars a private accreditation body from being set up there. Only one country where I know a private body cannot set up an accreditation body is EU, which brought in a regulation in 2008. This is called EU Regulation 765 by 2008, which was applicable from 1st January 2010, which said that every member country shall nominate a single national accreditation body. And it also added certain requirements beyond ISO 17011. It said it should be non-profit, whereas 17011 does not require an AB to be non-profit. You can be a profit AB. There's no bar. US has plenty of them. You have to be non-competitive. So in the European market today, UCAS has gone out of EC now, but say DAX cannot compete with COFRAC in the European market. Competition is not allowed. And it's a public service. So therefore, if you are in that public service, for example, the implication of being a public service would mean in India, suppose I was to say, pass a law that every accreditation body in India should be public service. So IQAS will become public service and IQAS will become subject to RTI, which today it is not. So that is what 3 requirements which were added by European Union to its own accreditation bodies. And you won't believe 35 accreditation bodies in Germany merged into a single body. 8 accreditation bodies in Italy merged into a single accreditation body. And today they are only a single national accreditation. But some countries have more than one. They have private ABs, not necessarily governmental. USA is the prime example of private sector and capitalism, I guess, all over the world. And now we can say India is also a multiple AB country because till 2 years back, in the signatory status, there were only NABCB and NABL. Today, QAI has got added, FDAS has got added, and as I see, IQAS is on the way. Shortly, we'll have IQAS, and there will be more in future. In some countries, there are joint ABs. For example, in Gulf, there is called GCC Accreditation Center, which is a combination of all 7 countries. There is something called SATCAS in Africa, which is, I think, about 15 countries got together and set up an accreditation body. Because accreditation body, generally speaking, in a small country will not be a profit-making entity. It will be a small, that's why government support probably is necessary. But in a big economy like India, it could survive on its own, doesn't need a government support. In fact, QCI also was set up on the condition that it will not get government support in terms of money. So from day one, from the day QCI was set up, there's no money being given to QCI except the seed money which was given right to the beginning. Many developing countries do not have accreditation bodies. In our neighborhood itself, Bhutan doesn't have an accreditation. Nepal has a private accreditation. Maldives doesn't have an accreditation body. Laos doesn't have an accreditation. This could sometimes be an impediment for exports because the best use of accreditation is in access to global markets. Accreditation is finding place in now regulations. Regulators worldwide are stretched for resources. They are short in numbers anywhere you will see, and sometimes they are short of expertise also. I remember was listening to a US FDA staff who said that if US FDA was to visit every food factory in the world from where food is coming to US at current strength of US FDA inspectors, it will take them 20 years. So what do? They go ahead and they say we'll accept third-party certification, accredited, etc. They have made a modification in their act and accepted that. So that is why use of third-party agencies is growing. Labs, inspections, and IFILX system use is also growing. Accreditation is also growing because for regulators, the option is they can themselves check compliance. I mean, a food authority can lay down requirements for labs, check compliance itself, and approve them. There nothing bars them. But they find two things important. One, relying on accreditation means it's the evaluation is independent of them. So nobody can accuse them that you are favoring this lab or that lab. No, well, they were accredited by an independent body. Second is the adherence to international standards. That's also an attractive option. That these labs, we can claim that our system, these labs are all adhering to international standard. And then thrown in with this is the international equivalence bonus. It's a bonus that this system also promotes acceptance of test reports all over. This is a norm, growing norm that you can use labs, accredited labs, or certification or inspection, and it is accepted globally. It's being accepted globally. For example, organic certification or halal certification or good agricultural practice certification is accepted based on accreditation, accepted all over the place. EC is a great advocate of this system, European Commission, which has notified concept of notified bodies. And in number of regulations, they have notified bodies, labs, inspection bodies, certification bodies, which are used for the purpose of conformity assessment. US FDA has also started, as I gave you an example, even in medical device testing, they have started to recognize accredited labs. Many countries use 1720 for inspection, especially in food sector. And use of accredited labs is most widespread. Please remember, all regulation is about product compliance. And the best way of checking product compliance is what? Testing. Simple. So lab, if I was to advise anybody in any economy to set up an accreditation body, I would tell them, first go for lab accreditation before you go for anything else. So that is the most critical accreditation, which affects product compliance through regulation or voluntary, either way. In the voluntary sector, there are a whole lot of voluntary standards. Management system standards, 9,000, 14,001, 22,000. They are all voluntary. Nowhere they are required by law, except 134851 medical devices, which has got into regulations now. But rest of these standards are all voluntary. And there are a lot of private standards. You have no idea. There are more than 300 plus private certifications operating globally. You go to a website called Standards Map, Google search Standards Map, and you will have a list of more than 300 private certifications on sustainability going around in the world. For example, good agricultural practices, global gap, AS9100, aerospace, this is based on 9,000 for aerospace, GOTS, global organic textile standards. So whether this is management system certification or process certification or personal certification or inspection or validation or verification, invariably, the voluntary market relies on accredited labs, accredited CBs, certification bodies, accredited inspection bodies, accredited validation. IEF also has, interestingly, a system where they actually endorse these private schemes. I talked about Global Gap, GOTS. These are private schemes. IEF has a system of endorsing them. So they become part of IEF system. IEF also has a mandatory document called MD25 on evaluating schemes, because now one requirement is that accreditation bodies should evaluate schemes. It's there in 17,011, a new requirement has come. Unfortunately, the lab board has not understood this clause, 463, 17,011. What is a conformity assessment scheme? If Food Authority lays down requirements for a product, Food Authority lays down what test methods are to be used. Food Authority lays down that independent labs will be used and these are the requirements for labs. This is called a conformity assessment scheme. And you as lab accreditation body, IQAS, are actually required to look at this scheme, whether this is appropriate or not, before you start accrediting, as per 17,011. That's the requirement of 17,011. But this is not actually understood in lab accreditation as much. But in course of time, people will understand. What's happening in India on these fronts? India naturally is following global trend. CDSU has notified bodies based on NABCB accreditation. It is also using accredited testing labs. Food Safety Authority is also using food safety audit agencies and also using accredited labs. Bureau of Energy Efficiency is using accredited labs for its star rating program. BIS recognizes labs as per 1725 accreditation, and it is, in the quality control orders, all labs which are used BIS recognized are like that. There's something called PNGRB, which is using NABCB accredited inspection agencies. We are also having some voluntary schemes coming up now. India started late. One biggest voluntary scheme was BIS certification itself, which is largely voluntary. Other than quality control orders, it is largely voluntary. But there are a number of now schemes coming up in India, which are voluntary certification or inspection schemes. I myself initiated for some of them in Quality Council of India, which also use testing. For example, Ayush Mark uses testing, and ICMed is a product certification. It uses testing. Some of them may not use. The yoga professionals certification may not use testing, but some of them do use testing. So there's a growing use of accreditation. Frankly, it's a good time to be in accreditation. I mean, I came into accreditation in 2006 and I saw it grow in front of my eyes. And it was wonderful to see this grow as it has over the years. Now, what are the benefits of accreditation? So first thing, I think from the presentation that I've already made, first thing is technical competence. Accreditation is about technical competence. Many times people confuse certification and accreditation. So the easiest way I find of explaining is, well, accreditation is always about competence. Certification can be to anything. Certification can be of a table where no competence is needed. Certification of a chair where no competence is needed. So first thing is that accreditation confers to you, if you are accredited, that you are competent in the area that you are accredited in. You have the right systems in place. You have the right people in place, the infrastructure, 3Ms, men, machine, method, you have everything in place. Because of this technical competence, which is validated through a third party, you get recognized in scientific circles. Your data can be used for R&D. Your data can be relied upon. So that is the first part I would stress, that your competence is being established by accreditation. Second part, no doubt, is global recognition. That's a wonderful method. It's a USP of, I would say, unique selling proposition of IF and ILAC, this peer evaluation system where you get evaluated and then you can be considered equivalent international. India's first free trade agreement was with Singapore in 2005. Incidentally, I was part of those negotiations for some time. And it referenced, even today, though the agreement references NABCB accredited certification bodies and NABL accredited labs. Of course, at that time, there was only NABL. There was nobody else. So this is part of free trade agreements, and every free trade agreement has this component of recognizing the accredited entities. What happened? My screen is not moving.
Jauhri sir, we have lost. No, you're there, sir.
I stopped sharing because it was not moving.
No, sir, it's fine. Looks good. I think you're on your last couple of slides in any case.
Well, what can you see? Benefits of accreditation you are seeing?
Yes, sir. I can see benefits of accreditation, sir.
And recognition of technical competence?
No, sir. The next slide didn't come on.
Okay. Am I back to the slide?
Yeah, we can see your slide. The slide is on benefits of accreditation, sir. Recognition, high regards, reliability of data.
Because in my screen it's not moving, so please tell me when it moves. Okay, is it the next slide?
If you can stop sharing, then maybe I have your presentation.
Yeah, I've stopped sharing.
Just a second, sir.
Anyway, in the meantime, I'll continue talking. So
yes, sir,
international recognition, to my mind, is the technical competence and global recognition. These are the two biggest benefits. It also minimizes risk for regulators and scheme owners. When I am, as a regulator, FSSAI, I rely on accredited labs. I am reducing my risk because somebody independent is evaluating. And then, of course, there is international equivalence and international standards. So, as similarly, scheme owners means when the private schemes like Global Gap, like QCI's Ayush Mark, that is scheme owner. In voluntary world, scheme owner is the boss. In regulatory world, the regulator is the boss. So both scheme owners and regulators are reducing their risk by relying on accreditation. They are also drawing the benefit of internationally. Many organizations use accreditation as a criteria for selection.
Sir, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah,
Please
you
move to
can
the next
follow it,
slide.
and every time you want me to switch, you just tell me.
Yeah, please move to the next slide. Yes. So many government organizations and private organizations using accreditation as a criteria for selection of a supplier or a vendor or empanelment, and therefore non-accredited ones can get left out and will lose business opportunities. There is a great marketing advantage, a competitive advantage. You can claim that I'm adhering to international standards. I'm validated by an independent body. It's not a self-claim, because otherwise we say you are claiming for yourself. I'm competent in this area or that area. This is your claim. So there would be usually increased business for accredited labs, accredited certification bodies, etc. Increased efficiency. Number of labs, they are competing. That means they are all looking to become more efficient so that they can deliver the same, same kind of outcome at less cost. Costs also come down. Even for consumers, cost has come down. The testing cost comes down. The certification cost comes down. When there are a number of bodies. So when we have been through those times when ISO 9000 certification cost to use a bomb, used to cost a bomb, and today it's available. Of course, it has gone down in quality also. But the fact is that number of players you have seen. I think let's take example of telephones. I mean, somebody like me has seen those days of DOT running the telephones and booking telephone lines, etc., etc. And today where we are and how the services are, they're coming down in cost. Next, please. Next slide, please.
Yes, sir. I'm trying. I don't know. We got stuck.
Yeah, that's.
So just a second.
Actually, yes.
Sorry.
Customer confidence. I mean, as customers, especially look at medical labs. I mean, common man is going for medical labs, isn't it? I mean, in most other services, conformity services, it's business to business. Manufacturers are getting their samples tested. Labs are getting their instruments calibrated. But medical labs, common man is going. Previous slide, please. Medical labs, common man is going. One before, yeah. So, no, the next one now. You've gone one. Yeah. No. Again, you've gone one further. One back, please. Yeah, that's right. Again, it's moved. Yeah. Please hold here. Better control of operations. Once you have a systematized, you are adhering to it 17th and 25, there is a better control of your operations. It is systematized. There is a help to the top management. Sometimes in a big organization, top management doesn't know what's going on at the bottom. An internal audit will tell you what's going on at the ground level. So it is a good system of feedback also gets systematized. You can make organizational improvements. Improvement is also a part of these accreditation strategies. Staff confidence gets improved. If I'm working in an accredited lab or accredited certification, my confidence also goes up. I'm feeling a sense of pride that my lab is accredited, which has a global recognition, which means I'm more inclined to I'll be more productive. Certainly, if I'm proud of my work, proud of my organization, I'll be more productive. If I'm cribbing all the time about my organization, I'll not be as productive. These days, insurance is a great driver in the market. So if insurers recognize accreditation, it goes up, and they do. In case of medical labs, I'm sure insurers will recognize medical labs, accredited medical labs. In Australia, for example, we encountered when we are having India-Australia free trade negotiations that certified yoga professionals are, backed by the insurers. So we were looking at how our yoga certification board certification can be accepted by insurers in Australia. Next slide, please. Next slide.
So this is going a bit slow. I don't know why. Just I press the next one, but
in case you, I'll go on. In case you get into some kind of legal trouble, it can help you, with a better defense in legal trouble. And there is a concept of liability insurance. I mean, first time when I saw this, the liability insurance in the standard, I did not understand what liability insurance means. Even today, many inspection bodies and certification bodies come to me and ask me, what is liability insurance? Who gives liability insurance? There is professional indemnity insurance today available. So you are better prepared for any legal challenge that you have. You can promote it as a mark of excellence. You have gone through international standards evaluation. It minimizes retesting, inspection, re-inspection, etc., and reduces cost because your results are more reliable. Test reports are more reliable. There will be less need for retesting. And this global acceptance also means that your product will not be tested in US. It is tested here in India, accepted, and you will reduce the cost of another testing in US. Traceability of measurements. You know that measurements. Dr. Aswal was here. I don't know whether he's still here. NPL is the national body for metrology. So in short, getting accredited means you're doing you're doing right the first time. This is what ISO 9000 is promoting, that you do it right first time. Getting accreditation also is part of that philosophy of quality management system. You know, all these standards, 17,000 series are quality management system standards for respective conformity system bodies. So finally, the conclusion, well, accreditation is growing. You know that accreditation is growing globally. You also know that accreditation has become part of governance. Even though you are a private accreditation body, you are still on the part of governance. Europe has actually legislated it and said that they are part of governance. But even otherwise, accreditation to me is a business necessity for conformity system bodies. Today, unless you are government and you are favored by government, you will not survive in the market. Howsoever big you are, even for example, Bureau of Indian Standards, they can run their product certification, which is blessed by the government, without accreditation, but they can't run management system certification without accreditation. And it is important both for trade, global trade, as well as in domestic market. But I will only sound one note of caution. Globally, third-party conformity assessment is under quite a bit of scrutiny. You have seen some of the rejections in the last couple of years in India. The organic certification, EC blacklisting 5 organic certification bodies in India. You have seen pharma failures. Surely the labs did not find out, did not detect what was detected abroad. Same thing with spices. You must have read stories about questionable carbon credits, which are all going through validation, verification through accredited bodies. I'm sorry, but India is being regarded as high risk by many countries or accreditation bodies or scheme owners. I am aware of that. I am working with some scheme owners internationally. I am working with some accreditation bodies internationally. I am aware that they think India is a risky place. Despite the fact that India's accreditation system is ranked 5th globally, Dr. Aswal was, not clear which one is 5th and which one is 10th. So I can tell him that accreditation has been 5th for last 3 or 4 years. Being top 5 accreditation in the world, it doesn't behove us as a country that our conformity assessment should be under question. So there's great responsibility on IQAS. There's great responsibility on you who are from the lab community to prove that brand India means good quality. We have the capability, we have the resources, we need to be strong on integrity as well. With that, thank you very much. Thank you, IQAS, for inviting me. And I was happy to share my thoughts and experiences on accreditation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jauhri sir. Thank you so much. And I apologize for the short interruptions, but again, Mr. Jauhri, given his stature, he kept the pace going and the interest wasn't lost. Thank you. And as I said, I sincerely apologize for the short 2 interruptions that we faced.
No, I should also apologize. My computer conked off, which also caused an interruption.
I said already, thank you so much for keeping the pace and the interest going. Generally, such interruptions, can be a little bit of turnout, but you kept the pace going. Thank you so much.